money, power, politics. The longest government shutdown ever meant that we missed out on a lot of information about the economy. So experts are now looking very closely at spending on Black Friday and even this weekend to try and figure out what's really going on. New data shows day after Thanksgiving sales increased by more than 4% this year. And when it comes to online spending, it hit nearly $12 billion alone. Yes, that is a record. Many consumers used AI chatbots even to compare prices and grab discounts in the face of tariff-driven price hikes. Well, back with us is Ron Insana, CNBC contributor and author of The Message of the Markets on Substack. And Catherine Rampell is here, co-host of MS Now's The Weekend Prime and economics editor for The Bulwark. Okay, Catherine, look, I've been reading the tea leaves. I'm going to be honest, I even shopped a little bit this weekend myself. And I think a lot of people will look at this and say consumers are showing resilience. But I think there's something going on under these numbers. Who is really doing the spending?
There's some evidence to suggest that the spending is unusually driven by the top end of the market, that basically higher income people are still feeling quite flush. These are people who own a lot of stocks. The stock market has been strong, largely because AI has been in a boom/bubble. But those people feel rich. And if they feel rich, they have more money to spend, and they're going out and spending. That doesn't mean that middle income or lower income people are sitting out this holiday season. Pretty much everybody spends more money every year around this time because people want to make sure that even if they don't have a lot of money coming in, their kids are still getting Christmas presents. They're still buying some extra treats for themselves. So it's not unusual to see pretty strong spending this time of year. But there's some evidence, again, that this is a pretty top-heavy consumer base right now.
Okay, so everybody got in on the sale, but there's some evidence that some people enjoyed more than others. Ron, I do think that some Americans might be spending big, as Catherine just noted. But if we look at the labor market, it is still weakening. And when it comes to tariffs, they are taking a bite out of everybody's wallet. So what is actually happening with the economy writ large right now?
Well, it is, as you say. I mean, inflation appears still to be a little bit sticky, around 3%, which if you, by the way, adjust those retail sales, which are up 4.1%, if you subtract the inflation rate of 3%, real sales were up about 1%. So is it the question around retail sales is, did they buy more stuff or did they just pay more for the stuff they would have already bought? So that's a key question that we're keeping an eye on with respect to inflation and how it's affecting the consumer. With respect to the labor market, it does appear to be softening in a wide variety of spots. Manufacturing has contracted now for the 9th straight month as tariff costs are putting a dent into production. So it's really a mixed bag. In my mind, it's still a case of mini stagflation, where the economy may be softening a bit, or the labor market most certainly is, and inflation remains sticky. So it's not like the 1970s, but it's a small version of what we experienced several decades ago.
Okay, Ron mentioned the tariffs, and Catherine, the Wall Street Journal says that tariffs have actually jolted the global economy, and AI spending is keeping it afloat. Well, first of all, for the lay people out there, what does this actually mean? And then what do you make of this? Because aren't tariffs a tax that someone is paying, and that someone is either the Americans or the American consumers or the businesses?
Yeah, so tariffs are without a doubt dragging on the economy. They're dragging on the U.S. economy. They're dragging on the global economy because it's this unrelated tax, as you put it. It is literally a tax. Now, who pays that tax depends a little bit on the market, but a lot of it gets passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices. So an importer might pay the tariff. They are the ones who actually remit the dollars to the federal government, but they're going to pass on that cost to wholesalers, who will pass it on to retailers, who will pass it on to consumers. So ultimately, yes, American consumers are paying a big portion of the cost, but there are probably some guys throughout that supply chain that are absorbing some of the cost as well. Either way, you're going to make it a little bit less efficient, basically, for goods to go out and for people to buy them. So that's number one. You mentioned AI, and we've been talking about AI, I know, a lot on this show in general. This is an unrelated, basically, lucky shock. So tariffs are dragging on everything completely separately, unrelated to anything that Donald Trump has done, unrelated to anything that his predecessor, Joe Biden, did. there is this big, massive investment spree in AI. It's fueling a lot of spending in data centers, in chip purchases, et cetera. And that is largely keeping a lot of this economy afloat. Again, completely unrelated to tariffs, completely unrelated to other policy issues at this point. But it's kind of taking the edge off of some of that that pain that we would otherwise be seeing because of these trade policies and these trade wars, which are slowing down the ability of businesses to produce and invest and hire and all of that. And it's offsetting it to some extent. Now, whether that will continue is a big if, right? There will be some winners out of this AI boom, but there will probably be a lot of losers as well. And I don't only mean the people who get displaced because their jobs are replaced by this new technology, but also there are going to be a lot of also-rans who made big investments in data centers who no longer need them because they don't end up having the winning technology. So yeah, we have this huge drag on the global economy and the U.S. economy because of the trade wars. It's somewhat offset by this boom, but whether that luck will last and how long it'll last is a completely different question.
And there are also environmental concerns that some communities have about the data centers. Not to mention, I mean, we just had 2 big elections where energy costs were a thing in New Jersey and Virginia, and those data centers need a lot of energy. So, Ron, okay, let's just say AI is a giant success, but the spending spree does not last forever, as Catherine just noted. It will have to end eventually. Okay, we don't know when, but it's going to have to end. What does that mean for the global economy when it does?
Well, it's really the 2 big countries that are really building this out in a meaningful way are the United States and China. So when that day comes, that big hyperscalers, as they're known, the big technology companies that are involved in artificial intelligence, stop spending the $360 billion in new plant and equipment this year, projected $400 billion next year, that would, as Catherine say, remove one prop from the economy. And if other areas of the economy are weakening simultaneously, you run the risk potentially of a recession. It's been said that about half the GDP or half the economic growth that we've experienced in the first half of this year has come from this massive infrastructure investment to build out AI capabilities. So if and when the music stops, it could be problematic. And there could be other issues around this, the way in which these buildings are being financed, the fact that the companies are investing in each other, lending each other money. It's a bit of a daisy chain that if it does unravel could have not just economic consequences, but consequences for the stock market as well, given that these big companies are so influential in the performance of what's happening on Wall Street.